Good afternoon, coaches and cadets. Another episode ng Game of the Week. Ngayon, ang main topic po ng Project Legacy Weapons for this Sunday is Hunter and Hunted. Ngayon, itong ipipresent kong game is between Lev Poligayevsky, world-class player, against ex-world champion Mikhail Tal. No, I have a simple question for you participants. No, who do you think is the hunter, and who do you think is the hunted? Dito sa two players. Pwede nyo, you could put it down on the Zoom chat. If you think Poligayevsky is the hunter, just give your answer. Or if it is Mikhail Tal, no? Before we start the game. This was played in 1969, 37th USSR Championship. It is a round 2 game. No? It started with the English opening and was transposed into a semi-tarash defense. White captured on D5, and after capturing on knight D5, White played E4, capture on C3, okay, another capture on D4. Then we have this check on bishop to B4. Now the only move here is bishop to B2. Now the stem game, or the original game of this line was played by Akiba Rubinstein against Karl Schlechter in San Sebastian in 1912. And Schlechter continued with queen to A4, which was immediately shown by Rubinstein to be a dubious move because of the move rook to B1. This is part of the accepted opening theory now. So after capturing D2, White captured on D2, and the queen captured back on D2. After the king recaptures at D2, White has a space advantage and more control of the center. And open lines for his rooks along the B file and also the C file. And this is a classic game that every student of the game should know. But in our game, Poligayevsky Tal, Tal immediately captured on D2, and after recapturing back, he castled. And we have the standard formation for this semi-tarash defense. White played bishop to C4. And Tal, way back then, there are two continuations which Black utilizes in this position. No? It's either knight C6 or the one played by Magnus Carlsen recently in 2020 against Anish Giri. He played here after bishop to C4. Giri played knight to D7. This is considered the better continuation than knight C6. So after a few moves, castling B6, rook A to D1, bishop to B7. It is usually the counter of Black comes along the C file, and White with this big center will try to get some attacking chances at the king side. No? Usually the rooks are placed in the center, and after rook to C8, Carlsen brought his bishop to B3, maintaining the diagonal along A2 up to G8. And then we can see the same idea that is used by Polygievsky in this game. So Magnus Carlsen learned from the game that I'm going to show now. He used the D5 pawn break, and after the capture on D5, this same pawn push on E5 was first played by Polygievsky in his game with Tal. No? So I'll come back to the game with Polygievsky Tal. So after knight to C6 by Tal, this position was played several times in the World Championship match between Spassky and Petrosian. Spassky is white and Petrosian defended with the black pieces. So it is a much popular variation back then in 1969. And after castling by Polygievsky, black played B6. So black's plan is to play this knight to A5 to attack the bishop at C4, and he will place his bishop to bishop 7 and also si rook to the C file. There will be a counter along the C file by black. So in this position, white usually places his rooks on the central files D1 and E1, and then trying to have the pawn break at the D5 square at the proper moment. But in this game, after rook to D1, bishop to bishop 7, the normal procedure by black, Polygievsky centralized his rook to F1. This was previously played by Reyes against Reuben Fine of the United States before World War II. That was the first time I was introduced to this kind of pawn formation. So this pawn formation is very important for theory. It can be reached through several openings, can be reached through the Nimzo Indian also, and other Queen's Indian formation. So everybody should study this type of pawn formation. Now, in the game with Reuben Fine, Reyes used the maneuver rook to E3, which was also used by Carlsen in his game with Giri. So we can see that this type of pawn formation or pawn structure is favored by Carlsen, who likes space advantage, the possibility of pawn breaks, and a good center formation. So here, played what is usual back then, knight to A5, countering on the bishop at C4. So here, since white cannot allow black to capture the very important knight square bishop, Polygievsky moved it to D3. And Tal continued, which was usual in that time, rook to C8. And now, Polygievsky, before this game, has prepared the line, the variation he used in this game. And one of the participants in this tournament, which is a colleague of Polygievsky, so the position, while Polygievsky was preparing this variation against Tal, and he was surprised that the position was an endgame position. And to his surprise, the same endgame position happened during the game with Tal. Okay, so here, Polygievsky played for the first time D5, which was a novelty at the time. And Polygievsky in Informator 8 gave this an exclamation point and claimed that white is better in this position. So what should you do? You have to take, because already at this time, Spassky has demonstrated that a fast queen pawn, the fast queen pawn along the D file is a very dangerous weapon in the middle game against his World Championship match with Petrosian in 1969. So after capturing at D5, Polyevsky continued with the surprising E5. So the same idea, which you can see in the games of Grandmasters, in particular, Carlsen used this type of pawn structure in his game with Giri. So here, there was an improvement attempted in 1986 and 1994 with the move D4. But analysis by Grandmasters showed that White has a clear advantage here, although both games were drawn. Now here, an example of the kind of initiative White has in this position is White can play knight to G5, of course, with an attack on H6. So G6 is not good because White will just play A6, breaking up the pawn cover to blocking. So H6 should be played, and here there is the continuation knight to H7, attacking the rook, and Black would counter with knight to C4. And the analysis continued with queen to F4, trying to continue the attacking line against Black. Black can play here knight to B2. And then in one game, White chicken out and moved the D1 rook. But it was later found out that in an analysis by Grandmaster Rainer Nack, that the best continuation here is supposed to be to take on F8. Now, if Black takes on D1, there is a pawn break at E6, attacking F7. So we can continue with rook to C7, and here, this move is hard to find. The knight will come back to the H7 square. So there is a threat that if Black recaptures on E6, and instead of capturing on rook to D1 as recommended by Grandmaster Rainer Nack in his analysis of this game after 1994, Stockfish found out that there is a much stronger move here, rook to E6. And then after the knight moves to knight to B2, there is an attack along the light squares by White, which is very hard for Black to defend. So there is a threat of check along the E8 square, and if Black defends it with rook to C8, a simple loop by White to prevent a backrack mate. And if Black tries D3, White here has a check. Yes, remember, a check on F6. So there is a combined attack of 4 pieces against the lone king. You can see that the king here is abandoned. And after taking the knight at F6, rook takes F6 will produce a winning position because the threat is to bishop check at F7, and then followed by a queen check at H6, and we can clearly see that Black will be mated in this position. But in the game against Polygievsky, Tal tried the counter at C4, attacking the white queen. So, following the strategy of kingside demonstration by White, Polygievsky played queen to F4. Now, there is already a accumulation of power along the king side. The bishop is pointing at H7. The queen is already at the king side. Now this pawn at e5 is very strong, supported by the queen and the knight and the rook. We can see that the main idea here for white to have a strong initiative on the king side is to have a good control of the center, in particular e5 and d4. d4 is reserved for the knight and maybe in some instance for the rook. Okay, and here Tal tried a counterattack, knight to b2. There are several alternatives here for black. He can play h6, queen to e7, and these are very complicated. The position is very complicated, and I will only give you a sample of what's going to happen if black will play queen to e7. And there is a move that is very hard to see. Rook to e2, the same idea utilized by Carlsen against Giri, doubling up on the e file. And after h6, we will again put another rook on the e file. And if there is a counter by black at rook to c8, we will utilize this diagonal b1 to h7, which is not properly defended because the bishop, light square bishop of black, is already far away from the king side. It's not participating in the game. Also, the knight is away from the main area of action, which is the king side. So after queen to f5 with a threat of mate, so the first move is g6, a simple retreat by the queen, attacking the weakness at h6. And then if black defends it, still this position is clearly better for white, even though he's a pawn down because of the accumulation of power along the center and then the king side. So after knight b2, there is an explosion on h7. This is the classic bishop sacrifice or the Greek gift. And this is the first time I saw that an attacking player like Tal was the victim of a classic bishop sacrifice. I was surprised that it could still happen to a super grandmaster play against another super grandmaster. I was not expecting this to happen. And when I prepared to show this game as game of the week, I still have the same feeling, the same excitement I had when I first saw it in early 1970s. No? And still, after several attempts to try to analyze this game, I still found it too demanding. It's very hard. It's very complicated, but there are a lot of beautiful lines in this game. And it is worth studying for understanding the semi-terrace pawn structure and also the classic bishop sacrifice at h7, which is also called the Greek gift. So Tal is forced to capture at h7. We can now see who is the hunter and the hunted. It is Polygievsky who is the hunter, and it is not to be expected that Tal is to be the hunted one. Okay, so here the follow-up knight to g5 is typical of the Greek gift or the classic bishop sacrifice. So black cannot go to g8. He will immediately lose this game if he goes to g8 because of queen to h4 trying to attack or the h7 square. So there is no other move but to move the rook to avoid being mated immediately. There is the follow-up queen to a7 check, and then after the king moves to f8, there is the typical pawn break to open lines against the black king, e6. So we can see the importance of controlling the open center file, and then the knight is also have an influence on the e6 square, and also the usual weakest square of the king, the black king position, the f7 square. And then there is this queen in a very aggressive position. And then this rook, even though it is being attacked by the knight, the tempo of the attack dictates the outcome of the game. So, for example, if black will capture an e6, there is the capture by white on e6, and there could be a fork against the black king and queen. But analysis by a computer, I would play knight to e6 here, but there is a much better line, better move for white, which is a check first. Regarding the order of forcing moves, you have to choose first check, capture, and then threat. So check here at h8. The king is forced to e7, and then another check. The king is forced to d6, and then we have the fork in a much better situation. So after knight to g5, Tal is forced to go to g6, and by this time he's already consuming a lot of time, which is unusual that he is being the victim of a ferocious kingside attack, which we can see here happening right now. And then there is a move here which deserves a 2 exclamation mark, h4, which continues the attack. In a game in 2003, Drib followed this move by Polygievsky because Yusupov tried to rehabilitate the line but was unsuccessful. He lost in the same position. And after h4, he tried queen to e7, and after rook to d2 by Drib, he tried rook to c4 and he was immediately punished. Okay, because h5 wins immediately. Okay, in the game against Tal, after Polygievsky played h4, rook to c4 was again tried. And here, this was the position that is being studied by Polygievsky for the game with Tal, which his colleague saw. And Polygievsky said that he has a continuation here, which gives him a much better endgame, which would be probably very difficult in a practical game, even for a caliber of Mikhail Tal to handle. The gamble here is to give a lot of practical difficulties for Tal, and then even with his highly touted calculation skill and phenomenal memory, he will consume a lot of time, and Polygievsky expects for him to win this position. And here, Polygievsky continued with h5 as he has prepared for the game. But here, there is a much stronger line here. Instead of h5, queen to g3 is much stronger. For example, if the king moves away from the discovered check, there is again the break e6. And then if the queen plays to f6, there is the capture on f7. Now, the rook can go to e6, skewering the king and the queen. So,
pinning.
If black tries to capture on d1, there is the rook e6, and then bishop to c8. Again, there is a threat of mate. White will play queen to d3, threatening mate on h7. So, there is a, if black will capture h4, I think the continuation here is supposed to be to capture the queen. And then after the rook was captured, queen h7, and after the king captures the knight, there is a check on d7.
And then the rook is wall.
Then capturing the rook on f8, and white will have another queen. So this is already a winning position.
Yeah.
But in the game, Polygievsky played h5. So he played king h6 because capturing the pawn at h5 will result in a mate. We will play g4, and if black tries here king to h4, there is a check at f3, a backward move by the knight. And after queen h6, there is a queen g3 mate. So after g4 check, if he tries king g6, there is a check at f5. Okay. And if he tries king a6, there is a check at f7. And then if black captures at f7, there is a simple mate h5. Okay. So king h6 was the only move left. But here, Polygievsky captured with knight to f7. Right? It is a long variation analyzed by Polygievsky. He also reached this position in his analysis in preparing for the game against Tal. So here, capturing at h5 will result in a mate by, again, by g4. And then, of course, king to h4 will result in king to g3 mate. So the only move here is to go back to g6 and then another mate by queen to f5. So after knight to f7, the only move is king to h7. So again, these light squares were utilized by white. Another check on f5. There is no other move but to go to g8. And then the simple pawn push, e6.
And then now it's unstoppable.
Trying to fork the queen and rook by playing e7. That's the threat. So there's several defenses here. Can black can play queen to f6 or queen to e7. Queen to e7, the follow-up should be, yes, another pawn break, h6 to expose the black king. You can try to defend with rook to h4, and then there is the beautiful move, rook to d4. Okay, that's very hard to see. This is an engine move. This is very hard to see. So if you will try to capture the pawn at h6, a simple knight capture, and then the king is totally exposed here. And then after queen to g6, threatening mate, and the capture of the rook at f8. So there is only one move left, queen to f6. But then pawn to e7 decides. Okay. So after e6, Tal tried queen to f6, and he's already in time trouble here. He has consumed a lot of time trying to find the correct defense against Polygievsky's prepared line. And after queen to f6, Polegievsky captured the queen, and Tal captured back, and then the attack rook by Polegievsky, he moved it to rook to d2, attacking the knight at b2. So there are several attempts to defend this position. If black will play rook to b4, defending the rook, the knight, I'm sorry about that. Simple a3 gives white a much better, a clear advantage here in this position. And if Tal will try rook to a4, there is the move knight to d6, and then the pawn push to e7, and then trying to promote the pawn. So if black will try to prevent the pawn promotion by bishop to c6, again the push on e7, tempo on the rook at f8, we'll have to block the promotion square, and then the simple transfer of the rook along the rank, on the third rank, to attack the king and try to promote with the other outside pass pawn. This knight, if it counters the rook at d3, there is a simple check here. And if the king goes to h7, there is the pawn push, trying to create a mating net. And if he will capture, there is the knight check here, and then trying to establish a mating pattern along the g file and the h file. So if the black king goes to h5, there is the simple f3. Okay, the threat was another check at g7. So threat at g7, king goes to h6, and then simple capture on the rook at e8. And then if the bishop captures, the rook will go to g8 and promote the pawn and win back the bishop at e8, and it will be an exchange up. Although black has a pawn for the exchange, and this position, the resulting position, will be a winning one for white because of too much activity for his rooks. And then the two pawns along the king side can help construct a mating net against the black king. And here, after rook to d2, Tal found the only defense, rook to c6. And then after capturing the knight at d2, Tal is already down to his last few minutes, and he did not find the best defense here, although white will still have the better endgame because of the pawn formation by black. He has 3 pawn islands, while white has only 2 pawn islands and very active pieces. This is much better endgame for black. And usually, Russian grandmasters prepare to have a better endgame, and they will always consider that line if they have a better endgame and give the opponent practical difficulties. The Russians are famous for their endgame skill in professional tournaments. Here, the only move that gives black a chance to survive was bishop to c8. And but Tal played rook to e8, and this gave Polygievsky the chance to have a much clear advantage in this position. He played knight to h6, and Tal countered by attacking the knight. And then after occupying the very important f5 square, so Tal captured here on e6. Again, there is an exchange. There is the problem of the rook penetration. that Tal has to defend. So, depend of the attack along the C file, but again, there is a movement along the rank. Again, Polegievsky has an attack along the E file, trying to occupy a very aggressive position for the rook on the 7th rank. So here, if Tal will play rook to C7, there is the strong move rook to C6, rook to E6. Then, if you will try to defend that pawn, there is knight to D6, and this is very difficult to hold against the caliber of Polegievsky. So after rook to E2, Tal tried bishop to C8. Then there is a check here by Polegievsky. Now there is a possibility of creating a mating net called the Arabian mate here. So after king to H8, which is the only square that is available, king to G8 is not good. So Tal played a very strong move by the knight, retreating to H4. So there is a mating net to be constructed by a knight at G6, pawn at H6, and then rook to G7 mate, or maybe a Vukovic mate here is possible. So to fend off the mate, Tal played F5. Polegievsky continued with the knight to G6, and then after to Tal played to G8, the king. Polegievsky simply captured the pawn at A7, and here Tal decided to give up the game. For example, one continuation, if Tal will continue with rook to C1 check, there is the only move, king to H2. So this bishop could be pinned by the rook along the back rank. So this has to be played. You can go to E6, and the outside pass pawn will be strong if played to H6, no? Because the knight controls the promotion square, and he could try to block the line of the rook, but still there is this move, check by the pawn, and if black will capture, there is the simple retreat by the knight, a strong one, attacking again the bishop twice by the rook and the knight. So this is a clear win for white. And after rook to A7, if he will try to use the pass pawn on the D file as a means of counterattack, rook to D6, there is a check here. He will lose his C8 bishop, and then he could try king H8 maybe, and then rook to A8 simply wins. Okay, because the king can go to F1, E1, and then defend against the pass pawn. So here, after this round 2 game, Tal was not his usual self. He finished in the 15th place in the 23-man tournament. Polegievsky won the USSR Championship 37th edition. He won by tiebreak over Tigran Petrosyan. So this tournament is very strong. One of the strongest of the year in 1969. The players are Polegievsky first, tied by Petrosyan, and then followed by Geller, Smyslov, Taimanov, Stein, Balasov. These are all grandmasters. Also the grandmasters Holmov, Gibbs, Lis, Liberson, Tal, Vasyukov, Gufeld, and two Saichev, and also Tukmakov and Furman. So this is a very strong tournament. And Polygievsky was in good form here. Yun lang po. I hope you enjoyed the game. This is a very complicated preparation done by Polygievsky, and this game warrants a good study. It is also a good game for calculation exercise. Okay. Ayun na po, Coach Neil.